Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Eberle, president of Anne Arundel Bird Club. Welcome to the Anne Arundel Bird Club's community lecture series. We have a really fun talk tonight.
It's close outside. If it rains again, it's going to be all wet. It's dried off now. You got to bring it in.
I'm just taking care of some housekeeping here. So we have a really fun talk tonight, and unfortunately, our scheduled speaker, Justine, is having some migraine issues, but fortunately, her colleague Ruth Bennett is able to pick up and give the talk. They work very closely together, and I have worked with both of them with this Bird Friendly Coalition. So let me give you a little bit of background on Ruth Bennett. Ruth Bennett is a research ecologist at the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute Migratory Bird Center. She focuses on optimizing the conservation of birds and other wildlife in working landscapes, especially coffee and cocoa growing regions of Latin America. And if that's a new term, working landscapes, I think we'll hear a little bit more about that tonight. As part of the interdisciplinary bird-friendly team, Ruth is working to build a bird-friendly standard that applies to multiple crop types and provides conservation outcomes at both farm and landscape levels. She is also an expert on the non-breeding ecology and conservation of the golden-winged warbler and led the development of a conservation plan for that species. She recently helped launch a bird-friendly coalition to bring together market-based conservation initiatives across the hemisphere. And my day job, I'm fortunate enough to be able to be a part of that coalition.
I'll talk a little bit about how forests are involved.
Ruth developed a love of migratory birds and coffee agriculture while serving as a Peace Corps volunteer in Honduras at the Universidad Nacional de Agricultura. There she helped implement a biological education program for elementary schools within national park buffer zones. She also found a population of overwintering female golden-winged warblers, which she studied for a master's degree in applied ecology at Michigan Technological University in 2012 and a doctorate in applied ecology from Cornell University in 2018. In her spare time, like everybody has spare time, Ruth enjoys bird watching, hiking, and running around with her dog in big fields. Today, that would have been a wonderful thing. So without further ado, Ruth, I will turn this over to you, and we are looking forward to your presentation tonight.
Great, thanks so much, Chris. Let me just start sharing my screen here. Oops, let's see. You guys seen the presenter view?
Yep. Oh, not the present. Yeah.
Yeah, gotta redo
No, I think it was all good.
Screen 2. Here we go. That look all right?
There we go. Yep. Perfect.
Great. Wonderful. So I'm here in place of my colleague Justine Bowe, who is the program manager for Bird Friendly Coffee at the Smithsonian Migratory Bird Center. I am the research ecologist in charge of the scientific standards for Bird Friendly, and Justine, who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, does all of the marketing, campaigning, program management. She's really the person that makes the standard run. So I hope I do justice to her presentation here, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all. So to start out, let's see. There we go. So I come from the Smithsonian Institution, and so does the Bird Friendly Coffee program. We are the world's largest museum and research complex. We have 19 museums and galleries and 1 national zoo in Washington, D.C., which is where our office is located. We also have 20 libraries and 11 international research centers, and we were founded in the mid-1800s with the mandate of preserving and disseminating knowledge. So within Smithsonian, I'm part of the National Zoo and Conservation Biology Institute, We have over 2 million visitors each year, not this year, unfortunately, because of COVID, but in a typical year, almost 2 million visitors. And we have 1,500 live animals in our collection, representing 300 different species. We partner with 200 scientists in over 30 countries with the mission of saving species. So within the Conservation Biology Institute, that's where the Migratory Birds Center lives. We're the group that developed the bird-friendly coffee certification, and I'll be talking a lot more about that today. So I want to start out with a quote from Thomas Lovejoy, who's a member of the National Board and a well-recognized ecologist. He stated many years ago that if you take care of the birds, you take care of most of the big environmental problems in the world. And as bird watchers and bird lovers, it's great to know that something we see and we are interested in actually represents what is happening around us in the world. But when we look at what's happening with the birds, it's pretty grim. A new study that our center helped put out last year, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, showed that since 1970, 3 billion birds have been lost from North America. And 2.5 billion of those birds are migratory birds. So when we think about what birds show us, something is happening that is affecting migratory birds in a way that it's not affecting resident bird species. Migratory birds are really birds of two different worlds. What we're looking at here is a distribution map of the diversity of 98 migratory songbird species throughout the year. So in the summer, they're all up in North America, Canada, the boreal forest, the Appalachias. And as the fall hits, these birds all travel down and compact into a small region of southern Mexico, Central America, parts of the Andes in South America, and the Caribbean. And so we really do call these birds of two worlds: North American English-speaking birds during the summer period, and Latin American and Caribbean birds during the winter period. And when we think about what might be happening to these migratory bird species that are experiencing disproportionate population declines, we tend to look at what's happening to them on the winter grounds. So here we have a map of tropical forest across the world, and everything that's green is tree cover in the year 2000. This is where many of these migratory bird species spend the entire winter. But from 2000 to 2017, everything that appears pink now was lost. So this was all forest in the year 2000. It has been converted from forest to other land uses in the current day. So we can see this is a lot of deforestation for these migratory birds, very high levels of habitat loss in these tropical forests. So from a conservation perspective, we want to know what is happening to these tropical forests, what is driving their conversion to other land uses. And according to the Food and Agricultural Administration, 70% of the tropical forest loss is driven by commercial agriculture. And it's a lot of different types of agriculture that are responsible for this. But today we're going to be talking about one type specifically, and that's coffee. So I want you to buckle your seatbelts. We're going to go on a little tour here across the world to think about what's happening to coffee and tropical forests, and eventually some other crop types as well. So our first stop on this world tour is Kaffa, Ethiopia. This is the birthplace of coffee. So coffee evolved in Ethiopia as an understory shrub, and it still is grown and found wild there today. There's several different types of species of coffee found in Ethiopia, and local peoples have been harvesting and roasting this and making a beverage from it for many centuries. Coffee is actually linked strongly with birds in Ethiopia as well. You're seeing here a silvery-cheeked hornbill, which is one of the species responsible for sowing coffee in the wild. These hornbills eat the seeds, poop them out, and that's how coffee regenerates naturally in Ethiopia. And you can see here some local people roasting coffee by hand, which they do as part of a multi-hour ceremony to create a coffee beverage that they drink. So that's where coffee comes from, that's where it evolved, but today coffee is grown throughout the tropics. And you can see the coffee belt that we're looking at here is basically identical to that tropical forest belt we were looking at earlier. So coffee is grown in Latin America. Guatemala, Panama, Colombia are the real hotspots for coffee. In Africa, it's grown in Ethiopia, Kenya, Burundi, Rwanda. And in Southeast Asia, coffee is increasing, especially in Indonesia. And each of these regions have slightly different flavors, slightly different coffee varieties that they cultivate, but this is now truly a global crop. All right, so with that background, we're going to make the next stop on our world tour here, going to Chiapas, Mexico in the year 1987. And in that year, Russell Greenberg, who was a prominent ornithologist and actually founded the Smithsonian Migratory Birds Center, he was in the field doing what he did best, had his field notebook out, his binoculars out, and was just recording where he saw birds, what they were doing, what types of habitats they were in. And this trip was the first time he, or really anyone, realized that coffee plantations were one of the primary places that all of these North American migratory warblers seemed to go for the winter. So Russ Greenberg documented a huge diversity of migratory warblers overwintering in shaded coffee plantations. Here's just a little, a subset of those to give you a taste of the diversity of warblers you could have in just one single shaded coffee plantation in southern Mexico or Central America. So these really are very diverse habitats for migratory birds. And Russ Greenberg, being the scientist that he was, started investigating a little bit more systematically what types of habitats these migratory birds were using. So he conducted surveys in shaded coffee plantations, shaded cocoa plantations, which is the crop that gives us chocolate, in pastures and silvopastoral systems, so pastures mixed with trees, in secondary forests, and even in some lowland oil palm and tropical hardwood forestry. And looking at all of those different habitat types, he came up with conclusive evidence that showed that shaded coffee hosted the greatest diversity and abundance of migratory birds. However, coffee is not always grown in these nice shaded agroforestry systems. Globally, the trend is now shifting towards sun coffee monoculture, which is the image you have here on the left. So we use this image with kids at the National Zoo all the time and ask them, which plantation do you think has more bird species? And even an 8-year-old knows that the shade coffee agroforestry system is going to have more birds and wildlife than the monoculture on the left. It's simply a matter of having more places that birds can hang out in the agroforestry system. Likely more types of food are found there. There's a lot more shelter and cover for these bird species. And research does back this up. Many more bird species are found in shaded coffee agroforestry than full sun monoculture. So Russ Greenberg, our founder of our center, having all of this evidence, having analyzed it and pulled it all together, decided to create, together with Robert Rice, the bird-friendly coffee certification. This was the first coffee certification to guarantee that a coffee farm provided habitat for birds. And we consider ourselves to be the gold standard of habitat protection in coffee farming systems today. So bird-friendly coffee very loosely translates to coffee that provides habitat for birds. What that means is that the coffee is 100% organic, completely grown without agrochemicals or synthetic agrochemicals. 100% of it is shade coffee that meets our standard for high quality bird habitat. And now, so this certification was launched in the year 2000. We have 21 years of experience now managing this certification and conducting research about how bird-friendly coffee compares with other types of coffee farming systems. And the evidence is very clear. Bird-friendly, shade-grown coffee, so coffee that meets our standard and our certification, hosts many times more bird species than sun-grown coffee monocultures or even low shade or partially shaded systems. So these numbers you're looking at here come from a study that we did in Peru, where we found that up to 61 bird species can occupy sun-grown coffee. 79 bird species occupy these partially shaded plantations, which have a mix of fruit trees and some retained forest trees. But you can have 243 bird species together in a bird-friendly shade-grown farm. So that's a dramatic increase in comparison with the monoculture. So it's pretty clear that bird-friendly coffee is better for birds than similar agricultural systems, but it's also better for people. Oops, I'm sorry, my dog is barking here. Give me 1 second to put her away and I'll be right back. Sorry about that. She is sworn enemies of the mailman who is here right now. So to jump back into this, bird-friendly coffee is better for birds and people. And the people component is really important because these landscapes are not simply ecological landscapes. They're landscapes that have coffee farmers living on them, landscapes that have other types of farmers. They're landscapes that produce water for communities downslope. And so it's really important to emphasize that this type of coffee production system has benefits for people. So some of the ways it does that, shade coffee protects, the shade system protects coffee and other crops from climatic extremes. So coffee is actually becoming less and less viable at low elevations around the tropics because of climate change. But in shaded systems, that the climatic extremes are mitigated and buffered, so you can continue to grow coffee at lower elevations if they have this type of shade. The shade system, the trees above the coffee, also increase soil fertility and soil moisture. That's really important for farmers because it means they don't need to spend as much money fertilizing their soils or potentially now irrigating those soils. Shaded coffee systems also sequester carbon, which is very important in the fight against climate change. And all together, we call these ecosystem services. So shaded coffee plantations, especially bird-friendly levels of shade, provide ecosystem services to people and also to the wildlife that occupies them. So I'll just give you a sample of what the criteria are that we audit for on these shaded coffee farms. It's important to mention that this is an audited certification. That means if you see the bird-friendly label anywhere, you are guaranteed that that coffee came from a plantation that met these criteria. And these are all criteria that we have researched and that have been determined to increase the number and the abundance of bird species present on these coffee farms. So the first thing we look for is shade tree diversity. Our farms maintain at least 11 different species per farm, and the majority of those species need to be native. There's strong evidence that native tree species produce more insects, which are important for especially migratory warblers, than introduced species, which is why we require the majority of the trees to be native. When you look up at the canopy from the coffee farm, we also require that 40% of that canopy is covered by shade. There's pretty strong evidence that at 40% shade cover, you start to get some of the forest associated species in the area using that plantation, which is why we chose that value. And we require that the trees have an average canopy height of at least 12 meters. Below 12 meters, you don't get very many forest associated species, but at 12 meters, you start to get some birds from adjacent forest coming in and using these farms. Other vegetation features are also really important. So we require that these farms retain 3 distinct levels of structural diversity. So they need a shrub level, a canopy level, and then some emergent trees above that canopy. These farms also retain old stumps and snags, which are important for some cavity nesting species and also for certain types of insects. And then we require that they also retain epiphytes, such as ferns, orchids, bromeliads that grow on the trunks of the trees. Those associated plants, those epiphytes, actually have very different insects than the trees themselves. And so you can greatly increase the types of bird species using the plantations if you retain those epiphytes. And then finally, all of the farms that we certify are also certified USDA organic. That means that no artificial pesticides or fertilizers are ever applied on these plantations. And that's important because many of the herbicides and insecticides artificially suppress the insect community, and they can get into the bodies of these birds, which decreases their lifespan. So we're going to go on our next world tour stop here.
LR19001.
Our next stop on our bird-friendly world tour, which is Cundinamarca, Colombia, in the year 2018. So Justine Bowe, who was going to speak with you today, actually traveled to a bird-friendly coffee plantation in that year and created this video that I'm going to show you. So you're actually going to get to hear Justine's voice here.
We're not hearing her voice.
Try this out right before.
Did you select the share computer audio when you did your share screen?
Let me just retry this real fast.
I think it's in the lower left corner. That's it. Great.
Start that over.
No puedo hablar en primera persona, siempre debo hablar de nosotros. Porque aunque soy el líder del proyecto, todos los participantes, mi familia y nuestros trabajadores, pensamos lo mismo. Es muy importante para nosotros pertenecer a un proceso como Bird Friendly, primero por orgullo. No todo el mundo está dispuesto a enfrentar un reto tan importante. Poder cumplir con una norma de sostenibilidad tan exigente como Bird Friendly y USDA Organics lograrlo nos llena de orgullo, nos hincha el pecho de alegría hacer nuestra actividad comercial, pero proteger el medio ambiente. Somos defensores del bosque, somos conscientes y creemos en el bosque. Por lo tanto, ejercemos nuestra actividad económica, que es producir café, y sabemos, para nuestro concepto, nuestro conocimiento, que la taza tiene unos valores diferenciales espectaculares. Si me preguntan a mí, el café bajo sombra me parece que es mucho mejor que el café a libre exposición. Aparte de que cuidamos el medio ambiente, tenemos una taza bastante representativa y muy interesante. No podemos limitarnos a pensar en nosotros, sino en la generación que viene y en las demás generaciones. Es por eso que nosotros nos vinculamos al proceso. Obviamente es muy difícil y que muchas más personas se vinculen rápido, pero lo que nosotros buscamos es, con nuestro ejemplo, poder motivar a más cultivadores y mostrarles que sí se puede ser Bird Friendly.
All right, so that actually wasn't Justine's voice, apologies. That's one of our bird-friendly coffee farmers, and Justine conducted that interview and recorded that footage. So that's just a little example of what some of our bird-friendly farmers feel that they are doing to conserve birds in these areas, and hopefully gave you a nice overview of what some of these landscapes look like. So with that background, I'll give you a few summary statistics of our program this year. So Bird Friendly having started in the year 2000, now in the year 2021, is conserving 14,000 hectares of coffee farmland globally. We certify almost 5,000 producers around the world. We certify and import 20 million pounds of bird-friendly coffee each year, and we have 12 countries that are producing bird-friendly coffee. And in this graphic you see behind us, this is just linking some of the migratory birds that, that breed in the United States and Canada with the farms that they travel to in Central and South America. And so from Colombia, we're gonna move on and continue on our world tour, stopping now in Washington, DC, which is where the Migratory Bird Center is located and where the Bird Friendly Coffee program is centered. So our program and our role in Washington, DC is twofold. On the one side, we want to conduct great science about how birds are responding to habitat in coffee plantations and now cocoa plantations as well. But on the other side, we want to make sure that we understand where the demand for bird-friendly practices can be generated. So we conducted a series of surveys of coffee drinkers in 2018, and we found that across the board, awareness of the bird-friendly certification is quite low. For participants that don't really like birds or just moderately enjoy birds, we only have 14 and 17% of them knowing that bird-friendly certified coffee exists. Among bird enthusiasts like yourself, it's a little bit better, 43%, but still pretty low for the amount of advertising that happens for bird-friendly coffee in bird magazines, bird journals, and bird fairs. So increasing consumer awareness we know is linked to increasing the demand for bird-friendly certified products. And that's quite important in terms of creating a market where this coffee can be sold to people that value the conservation of that bird habitat. So you all can help with this. There's two very simple things that you as a bird club can do to support bird-friendly coffee and create a market for the coffee that is produced in these conditions that conserve a lot of birds. The first is buying bird-friendly coffee. So if you don't yet buy bird-friendly coffee, please consider that. I'll give you some ways to buy it here in a second. And the second is by telling the bird-friendly story. So people that learn about how this habitat, highly shaded rustic coffee plantations, conserve birds and provide benefits for farmers, are far more likely to purchase bird-friendly coffee, even if they themselves don't really like or care about birds. So telling the bird-friendly story is a great way you can get your neighbors, friends, and families or communities to also generate demand for this. So where do you buy bird-friendly coffee? Very easy, just Google bird-friendly coffee and our webpage will come up. It's got 4 squares on it. Find a retailer near you. You can click on that and type in your zip code and find which stores in your area sell bird-friendly coffee. Or you can click this buy online square, and that'll take you to our new portal where we have every bird-friendly certified coffee produced in the United States available to purchase online. So you can search by how you like your coffee, if you want it wholesale or by the bag, if you want it ground or whole beans, single origin, what type of roast you like. And then those coffees will pop up with a direct link to buy from the roasters. That's some of what we're doing in Washington, DC to help increase the demand for bird-friendly coffee. But with the time that's remaining, I would like to talk about other types of bird-friendly agriculture as well. So to do that, we're going to move once again to the Western United States, where we don't have shaded coffee plantations, but we do have other types of agriculture. And they are primarily associated with beef. So the Western United States and parts of Saskatchewan is where the majority of our grassland birds are located. And if you've been following the press about 3 billion birds lost, you know that grassland birds are declining faster than any other type of bird in North America. These grassland birds breed in areas that now often have cattle ranged on them. And so figuring out how to ranch that cattle, and also provide habitat and conserve habitat for these grassland birds is very important. And Conservation Ranching program is doing just that. They now offer bird-friendly certified beef that comes from plantations, or sorry, from ranches that are conserving habitat for our declining grassland bird species. Very similar to the bird-friendly coffee certification, this uses a system of protocols to keep grazing habitats beneficial to birds and other wildlife. So they have very low stalking rates, they conserve native prairie that exists on the land. And importantly, Audubon pays a premium to all farmers and ranchers that participate in this program. So you can also buy these certified beef products online or at some of the food co-ops in the Western US. But agriculture and its impact on birds don't stop there. So we're going to travel to the Dominican Republic now. The Dominican Republic is where many of the birds from the northeastern United States overwinter. And the one we'll talk about today is the declining and very cute Bicknell's thrush. So almost the entire global population of Bicknell's thrush overwinters in the Dominican Republic, and females, which are declining far faster than males, spend almost all of the winter in a single mountain range in the Dominican Republic. In order to conserve those birds, a group called Zorzal Cacao established a series of cacao plantations, so that's the crop that makes chocolate, at the base of the mountain where all of the female Bicknell's thrush live. And we are working with them right now to certify that chocolate as the first bird-friendly chocolate product. And at the same time, we will launch our standard for what bird-friendly chocolate is. We hope that bird-friendly chocolate, just like bird-friendly coffee, gives farmers a reason and a market incentive to keep high quality habitat for migratory birds and other types of wildlife on their farms. So you can see here, we've got, this is all cocoa or cacao plantations, and they have a lot of native tree species planted above them. And up a little bit further on the mountain where you can't see, Zorzal Cacao is creating a forever wild reserve. So 70% of their land is primary forest that they have guaranteed never to touch and never to deforest. But impacts on birds are not limited just to agricultural products. How we build our urban spaces also has a big impact on bird survival, especially for migratory birds during the migration period. So in many places in the world, skyscrapers and big new buildings are choosing to put in glass that is reflective or has patterns on it so that birds don't hit it and die. We know that collisions during migration is one of the primary drivers of mortality for many of these migratory bird species as they're migrating. So these types of bird-friendly building designs around the world are also helping to conserve our migratory birds. And finally, I just want to show you this slide. So these are the organizations we work with in what we call the Bird Friendly Coalition. So we at the Smithsonian are working with coffee and cocoa, but we need help. We need other organizations focused on other types of crops, agricultural systems, and built environments to partner with us so that we can create bird-friendly options in all of these spaces. So you'll see here, we have a variety of organizations that are working on bird-friendly beef products. I mentioned the Cocoa Reserve in the Dominican Republic, but there's a lot of other organizations working in other places with sustainable cocoa agroforestry that creates high quality habitat for migratory birds. We've talked a lot today about coffee, and other organizations are working on not just coffee agriculture, but full landscape level conservation in these tropical landscapes. I know Chris Eberly and groups like Audubon and American Bird Conservancy and the Bird Cities program are working really hard to get cities and built environments to make commitments to become better and safer for birds. That includes things like keeping cats indoors, making windows and buildings less collision prone for birds. And those are very important initiatives to get all sorts of people interested in birds directly plugged into these conservation actions. And then finally, we do depend in large part on our awareness partners. So universities, groups like the Maryland Bird Conservation Partnership, that can raise awareness, get the word out, invite us to give seminars, have bird clubs, and get more people talking about what they can do for birds. So in conclusion, this bird-friendly coalition really is aspiring to build a better bird-friendly future through a couple different ways. The first is by producing bird-friendly types of agriculture or building bird-friendly buildings. So that can be bird-friendly coffee, bird-friendly beef, bird-friendly windows. And then on the next slide, we have purchasing bird-friendly. So this is something all of you can do. This depends on consumers, but also on distributors, market partners, brands, anyone associated with products that can be sold in grocery stores or housing spaces. Having people looking for and purchasing products that do better for birds creates demand for those production systems. And finally, outreach and awareness is super important. And all of these together, we are launching a new campaign called Live Bird Friendly. And we really invite all of you to participate in this and think about ways in which you can shape different aspects of your life to become more bird friendly. So I've given you just a couple of examples today. Many more examples exist out there. And you'll be hearing a lot more from us in the future as we make progress with this bird friendly coalition. So finally, I'll just leave you with one little animation from our bird-friendly coffee team here.
Smithsonian bird-friendly coffee is better. Better for wildlife, better for fighting climate change, better for you, and better for the world. Drink bird-friendly.
All right, that's it from me. I'd really like to have a discussion with all of you and hear your thoughts about this, things that you guys do to conserve birds in your own life and the ways in which you live bird friendly. So thanks all, and I'll stop my screen share and bring it all back.
Great. That was a lot of info, but a lot of really good info. Let me get view gallery. Okay, I'll get everybody up here. So I know I've dealt with Ruth and Justine on these things before. So I'd like to hear, and I'm sure Ruth would, from some of the others out there. Thoughts? Alan, yeah.
Okay, Ruth, I would just want to say something. You've lifted my understanding of this subject by more than 100%. It's just been awesome. Pamela and Chris, bringing something like this to us is like a real treat. I mean, this has been so nice. The only thing I want to say, I don't have a lot to add from my own knowledge, but I will bring this to my children and my grandchildren, because I think the way we talk to them about the birds and so on, this brings it into real life. And so thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you very much. And we have a comment from Miriam that she has not heard of bird-friendly coffee before. Oh, well, I'm so glad that we were able to talk about bird-friendly coffee today. And I hope that you found it interesting enough to try out some of the great bird-friendly coffees. I think you are all in Maryland, is that correct?
Yeah.
So there's a Maryland-based coffee roaster called Chesapeake Bay Roasting Company that's coffee in Whole Foods and some specialty coffee stores all around Maryland. That's a great one to start with if you're looking for your first bird-friendly coffee roast. There's the bird-friendly coffees in Whole Foods, the Allegro blend, and all of the Wegmans now.
We also have our very little local grocer in my part of the county that is selling the bird-friendly coffee from Chesapeake Bay Roasting Company as well. So it's not just in the big stores, it's in the little local grocery stores. I was really happy to see that. About a month ago, it popped up with its own little kiosk. It would be really cool, actually, because they had a variety of coffees from Chesapeake Bay Roasting Company, to have something, if they all sit in a kiosk, that perhaps has sort of an educational signage that explains what the certification is in maybe sort of a simple way, so that when they're in the grocery store, it attracts people's attention and they could learn about it without, because if they don't know what the symbol means and they don't have the benefit of having somebody fabulous like you explain it, might be something to think about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of printed or printable information, like one-page flyers or little quarter-page flyers that we could print and send to Chris to distribute to all of you as members of the Bird Club. And yeah, we do depend in large part on fans of bird-friendly coffee going out and speaking to their local grocery stores and trying to get some additional information put on those types of displays. So if that's something you guys are interested in to do, Justine is the person who manages all of that. So I'll send her an email and link her up with you guys to do that.
Great.
That'd be great.
I'd also floated the idea of getting a coffee club started within the Bird Club through Birds and Beans Coffee. And that may be something we try to resurrect a little bit more. I think I had somebody who might have been interested in helping, but COVID hit and all that kind of stuff just sort of got put on hold. So, having a central point for pickup is kind of crucial with the coffee club, but we have a lot of options that we can offer to people for how to get this good coffee. And I can attest to the fact, at least for me, there's no better coffee. And someone explained it to, I don't know, it might've been Bob Rice one time explained it, coffee is a fruit, I guess, essentially. And the coffee bean is a seed. So if you think of vine ripened tomatoes and how they're better, than just the ones that are produced quickly or forced to grow fast. So things that grow slower are just more robust. And that's the same with coffee, and shade grown coffee grows slower, which is why the big coffee companies don't like it, because it takes too long, I guess. But boy, the quality of it is just so much better. And then the whole aspect of the fair trade side of it, and helping the small family farms, guaranteeing that they can plant coffee again the next year and the next year after that, give them that stable living that we take for granted here. But yeah, little things that we can do can help a lot of people everywhere, including birds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've spent a lot of time in Peru and Colombia talking with coffee farmers and surveying birds on coffee plantations. And one of the primary things that coffee farmers tell us is that if they can get any money at all for the trees that they keep on their farms, they would keep those trees on the farms. But if they're competing with these full sun monoculture plantations next door that do produce more coffee, they're often the economic incentive is for them to chop down all their trees and convert to those types of systems. So by buying bird-friendly coffee, we are actually creating that market that gives farmers additional money for the trees that they keep on their land.
You had in those surveys that you did with the people, there was X amount of shade grown coffee available or roasted, but what, 10% of that was sold as bird-friendly coffee? So a lot of it was grown under those conditions, but it's that awareness, and we have to really get that awareness going so it can continue to sell and not be lumped in with other lesser beans.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't delve into that in this presentation, but yes. So of the 20 million pounds of coffee that we certify as bird friendly every year, only 2 million pounds are sold with the bird friendly label on them here in the United States. So that means 90% of the coffee that is produced in bird friendly conditions is just lumped in with other types of coffee. And the reason for that is there isn't strong enough consumer demand for that bird-friendly label yet for companies to think that it's worth it for them to put that label on their coffee. So we want to help ensure that there's a robust market for bird-friendly coffee, that there's demand, especially among bird watchers in the United States, because it's the group that cares the most about birds, and that is the most likely to spend a little bit more money for products that are produced in ways that support migratory birds.
So that's our call to arms, or coffee cups or something.
Yeah. You have power if you drink coffee.
That's right. Any other questions for Ruth? I mean, she is the expert. If you had a question, now is the time. George, you had, oh no. That was my cursor. Looked like you had your hand up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nobody else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
What percentage of you all do drink coffee on a daily basis? Looks like most people that have their videos on. Yeah, I drink a lot of coffee, and I do now drink bird-friendly coffee now that I'm part of the program. And I enjoy a lot of different types of specialty coffee, but in comparison to coffee with no certifications at all, bird-friendly coffee is always better. It's a little bit sweeter. It has really nice aromatic notes. And our coffee roaster partners also communicate that to us. That coffee that comes from bird-friendly conditions is just a much higher quality coffee. So if you like coffee and good tasting coffee, bird-friendly.
I think I've been drinking bird-friendly coffee for more than 20 years now. Maybe even before the bird-friendly thing was on it.
Yeah,
But it's
Birds and Beans was the first company to sell bird-friendly coffee. So if you've been drinking them for a while, I'm on a subscription, so I get my regular deliveries. Yeah, wonderful.
So we'll have to try to resurrect something within the bird club, at least for awareness, because we all need to be aware of what's going on with this and what the options are for us to be able to help. And maybe a coffee club, if nothing else, we can just hand out, maybe go into that database, print out the things, look at the zip code and what stores are there, and just put something on the club's website about all the stores that are close. Get people going.
I'm interested in getting reviews of all of the different bird-friendly coffees that are sold in the United States. Audubon, New Jersey has a podcast called Birds and Coffee, and they start every episode reviewing a different type of bird-friendly coffee. So each week, I think they do weekly episodes. They purchase a different bird-friendly coffee, grind it, brew it, and talk about how it tastes to them. So that's a really nice podcast to listen to if you want some recommendations.
I think that's a podcast I need to start here in Maryland.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get that robust competition with New Jersey Audubon.
Oh yeah. Yeah, anything to compete with them is good. Anybody else? Well, we will have this recording posted probably by tomorrow morning. So Ruth, thank you so much for your last minute commitment to do this program. I know a lot about birds and coffee, but I learned a few things tonight here too, and it just makes me want to go back to Latin America again. And
yeah, absolutely. So I should be in Latin America right now doing some field research, but nobody's allowed to travel from the Smithsonian. So just been stuck here in Monterey.
Oh, so sorry.
Instead of tropical birds.
Yeah, I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
This is Mark Wynn. And so the question is, I understand that Arabica coffee is generally grown under shade conditions and has trees and so forth. And I wonder if you could just briefly explain how much of Arabica coffee is bird friendly. I mean, is that inherently bird friendly, or is only some Arabica coffee bird friendly?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most people don't know that there are two different coffee species that are sold commercially around the world. The high quality coffee, any sort of specialty coffee that you get is Arabica. But coffee that you get at a gas station, some of the Folgers blends, that's a different coffee species called Robusta, which is grown at low elevations and can be grown in fully mechanized plantations. So there, it's not picked by hand, it's picked by machine, planted in tight rows. The picture that I showed of full sun coffee monoculture, that was a Robusta plantation. So Arabica coffee used to be grown completely in shaded systems and picked just by hand, primarily from areas of Latin America, but that is no longer the case. So even for Arabica production, now over 50% of Arabica is grown in full sun monocultures. It's still all picked by hand because it's primarily grown in very steep slopes at mid elevations in Latin America. But yeah, so just finding Arabica by itself does not mean that you're drinking bird-friendly coffee. So it's estimated that 25% of Arabica today is produced with moderate levels to high levels of shade. So even that 25% wouldn't all qualify as bird-friendly coffee. We don't have any good estimate about what percentage of Arabica production meets the bird-friendly standard, but it's probably pretty low. I would say maybe 5 to 10% of Arabica coffee would meet the bird-friendly standard. And for Robusta, so Robusta, while it is often grown in full sun monocultures, it can also be grown in agroforestry systems. So we work with some coffee farms in Indonesia that have very diverse agroforestry systems that grow Robusta coffee, but that is also locally in Indonesia. So it's hard to get the market demand and specialty prices for Robusta coffee because it doesn't taste, I don't want to say it doesn't taste very good, but I don't think it tastes very good. It definitely doesn't taste as good as Arabica. It's a little bit more bitter, it has a higher caffeine content. So you get those nice aromatic notes.
Yeah, I'd concur with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I am curious, have any of you been to a coffee farm anywhere in Latin America or Africa or Pamela has as well, looks like. Yeah, so I studied golden wing warblers for my PhD, and most of the male golden wing warblers I studied live in highly shaded coffee farms in Central America. So parts of Honduras, Nicaragua, and Costa Rica have excellent densities of male golden wing warblers in bird-friendly coffee.
I think I've actually been in the Cundinamarca area too. But yeah, that's coffee plantations are fun to visit, especially when they give you a little sample of their hand-picked and hand roasted coffee. It's so good. Unfortunately, they always drink it in little teeny cups.
You just have to drink a lot of those little cups. Yeah. If as COVID restrictions lift and you're thinking about traveling again, traveling to highly shaded coffee plantations that also have forest reserves next to them is something that exists all over Latin America. So there is actually pretty strong bird coffee tourism where you can visit bird-friendly coffee farms and also go birding and see all of your migratory warblers that are overwintering and also a lot of the really cool resident birds that hang out there.
All right, well, I guess we will wrap it up for this evening. Ruth, again, thank you so much. Wonderful presentation.
So much for everybody. Yeah,
and we
nice
will
to virtually meet you all.
We will try to take some action in the Anne Arundel Bird Club and see if we can at least raise the awareness to the point that everybody in the club understands it a lot better and hopefully is buying it. Might have to have a tasting party once we get back to in-person meetings. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And I will have this posted for those who couldn't make it in person. And we will see you next month with Melissa Boyle-Acuti talking about northern saw-whet owls. Good night. Have a good rest of the week and good birding. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.